Super. Hi, everybody. This is Shirley Gutkowski at Primal Air, and welcome to the podcast that Victoria DaCosta and I are hosting called Upstream Intelligence. And our biggest focus is to open wide, open your mouth, open your brain, open your mind, and help help you find root cause problems for all of your patients' problems. And let's not forget to think about the mouth when you're dealing with patients. And let's not forget to look at chiropractic care and the neurology. And let's not forget to use tools like thermography. And let's not forget to do labs that can give us insights into breathing and airway and sleep apnea and on and on and on. There's just so many little niggling parts that we're just, I don't know, we're not ignoring them, but we're just not remembering to include them all, I guess, is probably the easiest thing. So I'm in Wisconsin, and my practice name is Primal Air, and we work with the muscles in the snoring complex. I work closely with Shalom Family Chiropractic so that we can get adults and children's neurological components in the right place. And Victoria is in Las Vegas. Woohoo! She's been there for quite some time. We are both dental hygienists who have cobbled out our own paths using the knowledge of dental hygiene and oral anatomy. And go ahead, Victoria, give the long version of who in the heck are you? Why should people care?
Yeah, really. I have the library background, so I feel more educated when I speak. Um, ThermaLinxs I invented out of necessity because of the situation I was in dental hygiene after 25 years. The radiation poisoning that I received and the toxicity from the dental industry didn't do me any favors. But I love dentistry. I love working with the patients, and I reinvented a system where I could still see patients in what I would call a non-clinical environment. And one of the areas, Shirley, and you know this as well as I do, is time. We never really seem to have enough time to analyze and evaluate our cases. And every moment was a moment lost if we didn't produce a treatment.
Right.
Understand, we were there for treating cases, but at the same time, like I mentioned to a case that I had evaluated this week, I said, think about how much time a medical or dental office spends on evaluation and how much time do they spend on treatment. I said they probably spend about 10 minutes on evaluation and maybe 2 or 3 hours on treatment. Where's that even out? I said, and who does the most and has the most disservice is the patient. I've seen it time and time again where they come into my world for a very thorough evaluation and they're complaining that the treatment that they spent thousands of dollars on didn't do them any good, and they're upset about it. And so what we do is try and calm down. And with ThermaLinxs, the software and program I invented, the evaluation process, it does take time. It takes at least an hour to 2 hours, depending on how much evaluation they want to purchase. And it will give the doctor team, I say team, because like you mentioned earlier, we have the three systems we're now analyzing: the biochemistry systems, the biomechanical systems, and the bioelectrical systems. And here is where we have all the information put into an evaluation report. And it's with images and it's also with verbal responses. So not only do we get information from just taking images, but the patient also responds and says, you know what, when I was 16 years old, I was in a head-on collision. Well, that little piece of information is important because that could damage the nerves in the neck as they're growing up and as they're chewing. And what if they had orthodontics placed on the teeth and shut down midline occlusion and also altered the condyles, and they never had their neck aligned after that car accident. So they're going to grow into this malalignment in their 20s and 30s and 40s and have maybe massive
Yep.
headaches or have what we're now seeing is sleep apnea. They're going to have limited airway opening. And one of the areas in dentistry that I see we need to focus on is evaluation. We need to spend a lot more time on evaluation and where the cases are at for treatment, because not everybody's body is the same. Everyone comes in with insurance and they treat them like they're the same because they have, quote, insurance. But you know as well as I do, that mouth opens deviated wise, that tongue goes in a different direction, that breathing is changed, their sleeping habits. And that's what we're talking about today is limited airway. And I'd love to show you and share my screen on some images I've taken with limited airway to discuss for our podcast today.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen them yet, so I'll be seeing them for the very first time.
Yes.
And I'm going to try to reduce my because it's always so much fun to look at the photos and the thermography images and even X-rays, which you have compiled completely into your ThermaLinxs software, and that's been very cool. So I'm open for it. I want to maybe give some beginning steps in thought process. Just the term craniofacial, which is what
Uh-huh.
we use all the time.
Yes.
Craniofacial. It's craniofacial respiratory. Where's the face, right? It's this whole thing.
Right.
Right behind the face, just millimeters in, is the entire airway, which starts in the nares, goes up into the maxillary sinuses and up here into the whatever all sinuses, and then takes a deviation, right? The air goes up and through here and then 90-degree angle and goes down here. It has to pass the tonsils. The air has to pass the eustachian tube. It passes the tonsils. It passes the epiglottis, and the vocal cords, all before getting into the lungs, where there's a whole lot of things happening right there. But in our world, where we're dealing mainly with the head up and the anatomy there, it's the craniofacial respiratory complex that we have to be talking about.
Amen. And you know, one of the areas in dentistry, and it happens in healthcare,
Oh, sure.
we learn the cranial nerves. I learned all those anatomy systems, and then guess what? I got out. I went to my continuing education courses, and there wasn't a discussion about anatomy. There wasn't a discussion about neurology. There wasn't a discussion about airway travel. It was more of like, I don't know, what did we talk about in those continuing education courses? A better tool, right? Cleaning solutions. I mean,
You floss before you brush or after you brush?
patient
That's
education
still a question.
or a better probe. I mean, really, technically, we were downplayed on our knowledge at these CEU courses. I went to all of them. We had to keep it current, our license, and very few of them, I can't even remember any of them really talking about anatomy, and very sadly so. So this is where, our podcast is really going to up the game on the providers and the practitioners in the team environment, because I've shown these evaluation reports with the anatomy, and you should see the deer in the headlight looks. And especially MDs. Some of these MDs, they don't have any clue. I'm talking any clue about the cranial nerves. and they're giving
There's
out
no drug for that. Sorry, that sounded a little bit spicy, but there's no pill for that. So, you know,
and it's sad because the dental industry has such an opportunity to collaborate with the medical community with the cranial nerve, since we're drilling on teeth that have nerves that connect into the brain. And You would
And
think,
it's a short distance, right? I mean, it's just poop
hmm,
right there. It's like 5 inches.
you would
Um,
this would be something on a very hot topic on all these CEUs, and that would have medical doctors talking with dentists, dentists talking with medical doctors, and showing images. But let me show you here. I'm going to share my screen here.
okay.
Um, and you can see here, here's a case here where, you know, you can even
Oh,
see the stringy saliva. I said, and these are cases I'm evaluating and taking photos of, not even thermal. I take the thermal, but I'm taking photos as well. Where is the airway opening? This person has had headaches and facial pain for 20 years of her life. And I asked her to say ah, and we said it more than once to say ah. You can't even see anything happening in that airway, can you? I mean, it's complete.
no,
And
it's,
she has spent $40,000, Shirley, on her health care. She's been to dental and medical people, and she still has numbness in her face. She's had surgeries, if you can believe, surgeries on the trigeminal nerve.
oh my gosh.
Open
And
up her,
nobody saw that she has a tongue tie.
no, she
It's
actually,
wild.
oh no, she had the tongue tie. I misspoke. She was given a laser treatment for that.
Okay.
This
But
is,
maybe no therapy before and after. Her tongue is wider than her arch.
yes, yes,
So
and
what we know about that, let's as a little sidelight to kind of get people like on our page here,
yeah,
is that the tongue grows from a DNA trigger. And the tongue is going to grow until about age 7, and then it's going to quit growing. If it's not in the teeth the way that it's supposed to be, the arches of the maxilla and the mandible are not going to grow transversely, so side to side or towards the front. So you're going to have a mismatch. If this person was breathing with their mouth open for most of their life, which it looks like they probably did, there's no stimulation to grow enough space for the tongue to live in the roof of the mouth. So what people can do right now is try to do a click and do it really slow and just hold the tongue up. If the tongue doesn't fit in your palate, there's a problem. There's a mismatch there. That's a really good indicator of problems. And that's why this airway never really finished developing, because the arches never finished developing, and yada, yada. $40,000
no,
later. Sorry, go ahead.
no, no, I want you to interject. This is
Yeah.
one. The thing is, she's also been, and we're going to have a special guest on, hopefully next week, Dr. Gerald Smith, and he talks about when they extract the teeth, they call it, amputation. He calls it amputation.
Mm-hmm.
She's had 4 premolars amputated out of her body, and that's going to affect the neurology, also in the trigeminal communication, and also in the
Mm-hmm.
hypoglossal. She's lowering the signals into
Yep.
the areas of communication in those cranial nerves, and how can she function at 100% when those nerves are being amputated inside her mouth, and they weren't decayed teeth. It
Right.
was
They're perfectly good teeth.
They were perfectly fine teeth. It was she didn't have enough, quote, space in her
Right. We can
maxilla.
still see it. There's no space for her tongue. I'm
And
sorry.
instead of working with a team, she worked with a dental segment portion of her care, and had surgeries where they botched it up, and now she's got numbing in her facial nerve number
Oh
7
boy.
on the left side. And when she talks, she slurs.
Ugh.
And she's a young mom, and it's sad because
Yep.
where in the book does it say to cut anything? I mean, I understand if you're in an accident and we have to put you back together.
Yep.
In a case like this, where she's just trying to have a normal functioning life, and have oxygen uptake. I mean, you can see right here, her oxygen uptake is very limited. It's going to affect her energy. It's going to affect her brain. It's going to affect her heart, all the areas in the vagal nerve communication for circulation. I mean, I see a case like this and I just cringe. What's
Yeah.
interesting, which is interesting because in cases like this, she's not alone. Here's another case here, and this is an
Oh,
interesting case. What would you say about this case, Shirley?
ouch. Um, there's some real weird anatomical features in there. The tongue, again, is wider than the arch. It's just thick.
Uh-huh.
Um, the airway here, we've got a good arch. It looks like maybe the tonsils were removed. Um, Go ahead. What's the history there? What am I missing?
Well, look at the retromolar pads. They're not even. So
True.
in his opening and closing, he deviates.
Mm,
So as he opens, he deviates to the right. And then you look at his neck, and his neck is out of alignment. He's had many chiropractic adjustments. He sits at a computer. He's an engineer, so he's an IT guy. Yeah, he's not level. I asked him, I said, did you have car accidents? No. Did you fall off a bike? No. He doesn't have anything drama. And
hmm.
he's in his late 30s, early 40s. I said, tell me about your birth. Now, interesting. He's a
Okay.
his mother was in labor, and he said she went to the hospital to have him, and they put her on the back burner. They kind of said, well, you're not really in labor. And so he said by the time the doctor got to her, the labor had contorted, or it had been contorted, or somehow his body never really his little baby body didn't come out the way it should have come out in the timing that it should have come out. And her labor wasn't induced, but it wasn't not induced. And so she wasn't dilated enough. And so he's trying to come out and she's not dilated. And there's a lot of
Wow.
miscommunication in the birth. That said, he said growing up, he could never sleep. He said he was always tossing and turning and tossing and having breathing problems. Well, if this is the case, dentistry needs to be right involved at the very beginning with these children, and at
Hmm.
the same time involve chiropractic and bodywork, people that are specialists to open up that airway, get the alignment in the neck, and get the condyles, especially the atlas. That's where I'm realizing more and more C1, if it's not stable and it's not
Yeah.
it's too rotated. In his case, his atlas is rotated. And I have seen this on the scan. So when you take those thermal images, um, here he's locked up on his neck. He's got a lot of stress on the neck. Here's another case here. This case is a case that I've been working with. And if we look at his mouth images here, we've got some thermal images here. And as it loads here, let's look at his airway. Look at his airway. Um, and so, very limited. And he's he also, I mean, you could look at the tongue and you can see a lot happening here.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
yeah,
He has scalloping here on the sides. The tongue
uh-huh,
again is not fitting in the arch.
right,
He needs to have more space transversely on the lower. This dip here tells me that there's probably a restriction from underneath, that
uh-huh.
it's coated. A lot of people are all twisted up about the coating on the tongue, and you have a yeast infection. It could just be that the tongue never reaches the palate when they're swallowing because of the restriction. So if it never reaches the palate, then the food and stuff is just going to live right on the back of the tongue here, that's not getting like cleaned off.
And what's interesting, Shirley, is the time we're taking to evaluate.
Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Why don't we do this in dentistry? Why don't we do this in dentistry?
I just saw a new dentist. The health history was only 1 page long. And the health history, aside from, your name, address, serial number, what insurance do you have, and all of that information, was just in the center is maybe like, I don't know, 30 little check boxes. Um, but it didn't ask about sleep. It didn't ask about quality of life. It didn't ask about a lot of dental history. It just didn't ask a lot of questions. And I understand that patients don't want to have to answer a boatload of questions, but these are important things to put together. Not that a dentist is going to work on your your cervical spine, but certainly they're affecting it if they're doing any dentistry whatsoever.
Okay,
So,
I want to break there and show you.
yeah,
You opened up Pandora's box
I
because
did or he did.
you opened it up because
Oh,
here's a book called Dental Physician, written by A.C. Fonder when he was alive here. And guess what he talks about in his book? And I have the images here to show you. There's a little, you can see my thumb here, but he did. He says generalized
make
stress.
that bigger.
Yes, here we go.
There we go. Thanks.
Generalized stress can disrupt this proportion. He's talking about the homeostasis in the body of even the systemic stress. Generalized stress seems to be best explanation of the respiratory, and this was about airway and allergies in the lungs, allergic symptoms observed in patients who, as a result of malocclusion, possess a condition of disturbed mandibular musculature with the resultant malarthrosis of the temporomandibular joint.
Yep.
So if this is the case, and this is in the book, and we're talking about these cases here, guess what he's talking about here in the book? He's talking about these dentists going in. Look at a dentist being certified to work with such cases. I mean, why not? Why would the dentist be limited to just drill, fill, bill? And why wouldn't the dentist have a role in working with the team? Look at how
And working with the soft tissue.
yeah,
It's just so bizarre how many dentists will. I get pictures, from patients. They're like, oh, the dentist took a boatload of pictures. They're all of just the teeth. You can't make out anything of the soft tissue. And these pictures or these images are showing a dentist
yes,
working on the soft tissue. And why wouldn't they?
right here. And it says that the operator distracts and presses down firmly on the molar teeth, mobilizing by simultaneously pulling upward and forward on the angle of the mandible. This technique can be administered facing the patient. I mean, we're
Wow.
talking
Yeah.
about areas where dental medicine is coming, whether they want to face it or not. It's coming. It's been published, and it's a matter of time. And Upstream Intelligence, we're bringing this on the forefront of the intelligence, and we're opening up the minds. And pretty soon we will have an audience with a dentist and medical and chiropractors and dental hygienists, because dental hygienist's role is critical, in my opinion, in collecting the knowledge. And then
Yes.
here it is right here. And even also in training by you with the exercises right here, exercises performed after gaining functional mouth opening. So, he's talking
Yep.
about these exercises that we can work with our cases. How beautiful is that? I mean, as a dental hygienist, you mean to tell me I can expand my mind and my role in my profession? Wait a minute, really? Yes, and I look at this and I think, okay, so how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to have some tools, and these tools here are going to be, and this is what Alfonder talked about, is software. So I can take these images, and here we have a case here, and I'll show you here. I mean, look at his neck.
Wow.
In his neck, and if we overlay it side by side, look at that. You can't tell me that, a
He's not
dental
sore.
isn't going to be needed. And I'm going to tell you right now, I didn't take this in 2 seconds. I mean, I had, and poor guy, I mean, he's really having some issues that he's going to need, um, some guidance in a
Yeah.
dental and a medical world. And I look at this, and here's his left side, side by side. I take this, I use the software. The software gives
Mm-hmm.
me the verbal information here about what's happening. And in one of the areas here in the software, I like to find out is, especially here, I want to know life damage events
Mm.
happened, and I mean, he's telling me he had 12 fillings, maybe more before he was 12.
Wow.
And he was in the military and had physical and mental damage. He's been out of it in his 20s and 40s. But I mean, these little clues and give me information. And then here we have his, you know, I like to see the condyles here side by side and overlay them so that you can visually see the the maps. And this is what we were talking about, the overlays of the x-rays, because we take these x-rays in the dental office, but are we really
And they're separated from the soft tissue again.
exactly? And I am messing this up here. I want to overlay it. But what we want to see is the effects,
Yeah.
and where are the effects? And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking to myself, you know, where is the, here's his bite here, and look at that stress.
Yeah.
And this takes time. And I want to teach these offices to collect using thermal imaging, using the
Right.
X-rays, using photographs, evaluation, and look at his sinuses. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
in this way, don't tell me a patient can't learn from this. When they start to
Right.
see what's going on and where their occlusion is at, and then he's even has a root canal here. And then look at the blue, I mean, the blue means neurology damage. He's not communicating. Look at the stress up here in the cerebral, and so, to me, it's all a matter of, using this information. And they have new technology now where, they can even show just highlighting the area. And I had to laugh because I'll have to show you this here. Hey, the software's getting so sophisticated, you can see
Yeah.
heat. This is a heat map tool on a cat. Well, you can also use it in the dental industry.
Sure.
And so if they're hitting harder here, what does that tell the dentist? And how does that going to affect the condyle? And how's that going to affect the airway? And when you start looking at cases like this, and even the back of his neck, I mean, I want to see, here's the back of his neck. And even more stresses on the left side. Well, if you start looking at the bite and the occlusion, what they're talking about in their neurology, dental medicine neurology, his neck is locked up because of his bite.
Mm.
And we saw that on that case. And so what I hope to do is, and you said they don't like to answer a lot of questions. In the dental myofunctional, here's the nerves. We can
Mm.
literally, look at these nerves and see, here's a trigeminal nerve, and ask a few questions, only 3 or 4. We're not going into detail, but
Right.
where,
We're
what,
figuring it out. We don't have to have
big,
them do all the figuring, right? But we
right.
do want to know, did they have an accident? Did get a baseball in the mouth when they were in junior high? We want to know all of that kind of stuff. But they're going to forget. And so having these images brings up these questions for the patient. And then we can say, wow, this and that. Did you get hit by a baseball when you were in junior high? And they'll be like, oh, yeah, that's right. It was really bad. It was Joe Blow and blah, blah, blah. So,
And this is where the role of a dental hygienist can
yeah.
call it, what do we want to call it? A biological dental hygienist? They now have certifications in IOMT. I saw that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's great. I'm glad they're expanding the role, but I can tell you right now, the first question out of a dentist's mouth is, where's the production? So
Yeah.
she's the biological dentist. Where is she going to produce for my?
Yep.
And the dental hygienist thinks, great, I get out of scraping teeth. This is great. But what do I do? I don't know what to do. Well,
Right.
you're gonna need to use your education and your evaluation skills that you were learned in palpation, which we were tested on our national and state boards. But I want you to take a look. This is hypoglossal nerve number 9. Look at this right here, laryngeal nerve from the vagal nerve. Okay, look at his neck here. Can you not see the correlation?
Yeah.
So, and to me, it's a matter of, I mean, you cannot make this stuff up. I mean, this is just crazy here, you know?
Right. And that all leads to wondering about sleep apnea and then
It,
doing a sleep study and then
you,
treating
you go back,
that
you're right.
sleep study based on actual dentistry, not just acrylic deficiencies,
Right. And you know, and
not just putting a gadget in there and doing his teeth this way or that.
right. And when you look at the bite, can they analyze it? Looking at this bite, he's got the stress here. Looking at that occlusion, how is it affecting the condyles? And the airway and the stress of the neurology of the information going into the body systemic. It's interesting. They talk about, and here's your tongue. They talk about the oral systemic till the cows come home. I've heard that. I started learning about it years ago.
Yep.
But what do you do with that information? What is it?
Well, all they ever talk about is flossing more. I mean, there was a whole big,
Yeah.
there was maybe 5 years, floss or die. Hygienists were all twisted up about floss or die, and they have such a big role in teaching people how to floss. They miss this.
Oh, this is completely missed, and I like to even get this information here. Just that circulation, there right there, what you talk
Yep.
about. And look
They
at the,
train them.
yeah. I mean, what the heck are we missing in dentistry by not taking the time to evaluate a case study, not a case, just a regular, normal case that we could help improve their quality of life. I mean,
All right, so let's back up 1/2 a second, or actually maybe 2 minutes back. You said, where's the production? So just taking these images for you, who's a very skilled image taker, you're taking photographs and thermographic images with the same camera with a flip of the switch. Is that right?
yes,
Okay. So how long does it take you to do from the shoulders up, let's say?
an hour.
An hour.
And
And for the full body?
for the whole body, I'll do 40 minutes of imaging, and then I'll do another 2 hours of data input, because now I've got more information here when we go to
To ask questions.
yeah, because you've got information here on the verbal and the imaging. This is the dental portion. And then especially women want to know about breast cancer. I tie it into the teeth, because if you have leaky root canals or implants, it could be jamming up the lymphatic drainage from the neck into the breast tissue, which we've seen over and over. So this area here takes time.
And then how much does this usually cost? Like, let's say a range. Is it anywhere from 100 to 1,000? Is it 50 to 100? What's the range in fees that a person would charge for that? And then people are always going to ask about the coverage with their
You know,
medical plans.
I have seen the CPT codes
Mm.
for this. Cross code medical charging between $300 to $800.
So that's not bad for an hour or two, right?
1 hour only. This
1 hour.
is a portion in a dental practice.
Okay. And then how much time does it take for you to evaluate all of these data points that you've accumulated over the hour?
Within the hour, it
It's
takes
concurrent?
5 minutes to image, another 10 minutes to put it in, and then we have the time to educate and teach. and go and explain the evaluation. That's all within.
And then do you don't do a treatment plan then based off of those
Oh,
images? You
no,
give what do you give to the patient then? Do they get a piece of paper that says
this,
follow up with your dentist, follow up with your ENT, follow up with your blah blah blah?
this is in a dental office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not,
Okay, but what is, I mean, there's going to be things that show up here that aren't, really in the realm of dentistry.
oh,
They're
this is
going to need
all
a
realm of
chiropractor or whatever.
in
So,
what you're talking about is here. I can understand where you're getting confused. This
okay.
this right here in zone 1 is all dental.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And the charting of the teeth and the mouth images, the dental x-rays, all of this is uptake and information already taken from another appointment, most likely. Okay.
Mm.
And then the charting of the teeth, you're just passing the information on from another area of Dentrix or EagleSoft. And then here's where you do the observation here on the visual and the verbal, and going through asking questions. Here are the questions here that are associated with each of the facial nerves. Doesn't take much time to go through yes or no, asking these questions. That's all dental. If I try to fit this into a wellness center, deer in the headlights, I can do it because I'm a dental hygienist, but I've had difficult training people in the wellness industry to take this information and take the dental information and collaborate with the medical. Now, we're in breast tissue here. Most likely, no one's going to remove their top in a dental office, okay, to get their breast image. So I usually put this type of scanning and evaluation in a wellness center or a chiropractor office with privacy. And now this takes me not very long, depending on if I'm just doing upper body. I'm just doing the breast and the chest. That doesn't, we're looking at 6 angles. That doesn't take long.
Okay, let's go back a little bit to the dental because I'm either not asking it right or I'm not hearing your answer right. So now you charge $500 for 2 hours of
1 hour,
images and
1
1
hour
hour.
office, take
Okay.
myofunctional dental data.
Then what? Then what happens? You have to have a treatment plan based off of the data.
Dentist comes in, just like you do with your x-rays, comes in at the end after you leave at least 15 minutes, comes in and looks at the case, has a
So
discussion.
now there's an hour of dental hygiene time, or it doesn't even have to be a hygienist, right? It could be a dental assistant.
I don't really get excited about dental assistants. And let me tell you why. I've talked with them and they tell me, Victoria, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm seeing. I don't know the anatomy.
Okay. So now it's an hour of hygiene time and now 15 minutes of dental time with the patient. For me, I look at my images that I take when the patient is gone. And I write up a report and a treatment recommendation plan. So there's usually an orthodontist referral, there's usually a dentist referral, there's usually a chiropractor referral, plus my treatment plan, plus sometimes even a nutritionist. So I need to make money off of this thing. So I don't get any money from the orthodontist, I don't get any money from the nutritionist, la. So what kind of things, so a dentist would potentially be able to use this to create a treatment plan for a full mouth rehabilitation. So that could be a pretty big treatment plan, especially if they also do the ortho themselves.
Yes.
So this is what's driving their treatment plan, because now you have an actual diagnosis. You can see that the teeth are not occluding appropriately. You can see that the damage was done to XYZ nerve because
okay,
this
I
and
know,
that
but
tooth
I don't want you to go down that dangerous, slippery road of this is what we recommend you, and it's not what you want. The most
Yes.
important thing is, and this guy didn't fill it out, is he wanted to find out why he had all these injury and this pain and hip pain and neck pain. He didn't fill out his complaints in his magic wand like I wanted him to. But this is where I start with the treatment. Not so much their complaints, but their magic wand. What is
Mm.
it that they want well in their body, their dental and medical? Because you're going to have higher compliance. When I go down that slippery road of this is what we saw and this is what you have to have, they'll be compliant for a little while, but
Yeah.
then going to be compliant the entire treatment because they're not getting the results. You give them the results after what they want. He obviously he's got neck injury and hip and neck pain. Okay, so he wants to find out how to get rid of that pain. That's where we're going to start with him. We're going to say, gee, look at your situation here. You want to get rid of that neck pain. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to discuss why it's there. And we're going to look at the situation that's contributing factors. Mr. Jacob, you've got an end-to-end bite, and one of the areas that's contributing in the condyle, and we'll talk about it, is, what's happening in the stresses in your nerves. We got to get those stress off the nerves to get you out of pain. Also, let's look at your tongue. Wow, what's going on here? And I mean, what we're going to do is fact find with the case, with the patient, to get them where they want to be. This is a treatment plan for them, specifically customized. And it could take months and it
Yeah.
could take
Oh,
them in
yeah.
years. So we're looking at compliance high because they're getting little by little results and you're working with a team. That's where, I come here and I say, who's your provider team? Who's your provider team right here? And what kind of people do you have in your library to assist you in getting this case and this patient out of pain and into a situation of homeostasis? This is a journey. It's not a destination, because I'm going to tell you right now, there's maintenance. For someone to say that I'm fixed is a joke, because they could slip on a piece of ice and go right back to where they were.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
And so what we
but
want,
you'd like for them to have some kind of an endpoint.
right? So they have an endpoint, but they also go on maintenance to reevaluate with this. So the scans are always going to be there to reevaluate them, maybe once a year. But it's no different in the dental industry. We're so big on recall. We're so big on re-imaging, and we're
Right.
so big on reevaluation. As little as it is, we're the only healthcare industry in the world that has such a recall system built in place, versus the medical, where people just show up when there's a chronic situation and are in acute.
Right.
So we're in the prevention world, and this is where I believe, in these areas here, in talking that, just here's Dr. Fonder's book here. You can see it's a well-worn copy. This is my Bible, and he's talking about, the dental distress syndrome, and it's also going to be talked about by Dr. Smith, as well, and determining how to get your cases, back into homeostasis with your evaluation time spent. And, one of the things that we can do is collect the knowledge in a dental hygiene visit. Now,
Yeah.
said, could a dental hygienist collect this kind of screening visit, in a wellness center? I've done it in a wellness center where I have the x-rays emailed to me, to put them in, like you said, do the report later. Now I have, a report here that I can generate and give to the doctors. I also built into the software here, which I like better, is right here. It says provider access link,
Mm.
and they can take this link here and click on it and see all the things that they can go into the software, because it's on the cloud base, and see, click on the images, click on side by side, click overlay, versus here where they have a PDF version. So,
So they can't
this
manipulate it at
is
all.
very, it's very stagnant, and it doesn't mean that they can't get the report and look through it. I've had doctors look through it, but, at the same time, they're kind of lost in the dark. That's why we really need a training course for the evaluation here, for the doctors to learn, these systems here, which, we're talking about, are they going to be taught,
Mhm.
are the dentists going to be taught how to adjust that atlas. I believe they should, in a limited fashion, working with a team of doctors, like chiropractor, bodywork specialists,
Sure.
because they're part of the team. What are your
Exactly.
takes on it, Shirley?
I'm sorry.
I mean, how do you feel about this?
Woo. Uh,
Can you get
well,
Also,
no, I love it. This is, the big push right now is collaboration and how the collaboration works
mhm.
and how it can be. I just keep going. I don't know. I don't know, going back to the money. If you've got a collaborative team of 5 practitioners, how is the patient going to be able to, well, they're going to have to be able to afford it. For one, how can we keep our prices down as practitioners so that we can really do a benefit for each patient?
Oh, well, this is what I've seen is phases of care.
Mm,
So you put them in a phase one, and the phase one is this much money, this much time, and you also go by their values. I didn't show it on the software, but there is an
yeah.
importance of, is time a factor for them? Is
Yep.
money a factor? Is pain a factor? I mean, there's all these factors to consider when you're treatment
Mm-hmm.
planning, and you put it in phases. And I have seen time and time again, they're very happy about the phases, because when they see phase two, they realize I don't have to spend money until phase two for that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
more money. Okay, so right now, phase one is this, and it's my time, it's my money. I can do this. You give them a feeling of empowerment and
Yeah.
feeling of, and a knowledge that, you know what, we're with you. You have a support team in place, and we're going at your speed. This is your journey, not ours. You're
Right.
hiring us to fix this and have a solution. That's the key right now, is a solution. And
Yes.
what's very sad is you talk about money. These cases have spent up to $40,000, $50,000.
For nothing. And then we come and we're like, well, another 40, and we can almost guarantee some kind of a solution because we're going to the root cause. And they're like, I
Mhm.
want to buy a car. I want to go on a vacation. I want to spend my money for something fun instead of breaking or repairing this broken body. Or if they're already 65 and they finally have time to take care of everything, but now they have zero income.
Mhm.
It's This is why it is so critical to get this at the initial phases when the child is developing, so that we don't end up with these gigantic treatment plans and money. I just hate it when I'm looking at a 60-year-old woman and I'm like, this could have been done when you were, 3 months old. Your tongue could have been released. You could have worked your tongue in a different way to get your teeth to all fit so you didn't have to have them extracted. Now you have to have your arch expanded. We're going to put some implants in. So 4 implants at $2,000 each is 2, 4, 6, 8,000 just for the implants, plus the arch expansion. That can be, depending on where you are in the country, $20,000 to $30,000. Some places are still in the $8,000 range, but that's a range, and all of it could have been prevented in childhood. And so it's so aggravating. And I just hate that we have to charge so much, but we're stuck with these problems that were developed or heaved onto you as a child, or ignored on you as a child. And as a parent, I can tell you it's real easy to ignore a lot of things. I had one kid every morning, I didn't sleep at all. I have a headache. I didn't sleep at all. I have a headache. I'm like, 7-year-olds don't have headaches. And yes, you did sleep because I didn't see you all night long. So, it's so easy, but we have to take this into consideration. And then if we really go and one more step down the root cause is the the perverse incentives that were done on behalf of food companies with ties to the government, and then the recommendations that the government made in their high level of ignorance and high level of tolerance, that we are stuck with all of these health problems. And I'm sorry that somebody has to pay for it, but we have to start with these children. You cannot feed your child grains, period. It is the first onslaught onto the infant body if you're able to avoid getting the vaccines that they recommend. You can put them off for a year or two. I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-piling on a lot of vaccines into a tiny baby who's going to triple their size inside of 1 year, including 80% of their brain development. It just does not sound right to be pounding this many vaccines in, regardless of what else you think about vaccines. And then they are born into ketosis. The brain is used to using ketones. The rest of the body is used to using ketones as a primary energy source. And then our first food is rice cereal. And we just are all about these grains. And you should see what's going on in the baby food aisle. It's unbelievable the amount of junk that they promote as fun for babies to eat. And it all starts to drive the pancreas into creating more and more pancreatic juices like insulin. And that starts the cascade. And now we're in the third and fourth generation of these metabolic challenges to infants. And it's piling up, man. And I'm so sorry. But this is where we have to start. We have to start with feeding our children actual food and providing them with the nutrition that they can fight some of these weirdo things like the tongue growing and the maxilla not growing, you know. And then that doesn't give you enough room for the airway to develop. It's a slippery slope.
Well, now you want to add the tech neck. So they're bending over and now they're putting the
well, they used to read like that. There were kids in my school that had that same position with a book. It's not about the tech. I really am going to keep pushing back on that. It's posture, just posture in general.
I didn't read a book when I was standing at the bus stop.
You didn't? A lot of kids do. There were a lot of kids at our bus stops.
And I didn't read a book while I was walking down the grocery store aisle. Didn't read a book. So this tech neck is a real problem because even the little 3-year-olds are given the iPads for hours. Now they
well, that's a separate problem.
They have these games now, you know. So what we have is a biomechanical infrastructure happening, but more importantly is the bottom line is evaluation. The dental office is the first line of defense for these evaluations. They come in at 3 years old. What better time to start evaluating and taking the time for the evaluation?
Yep.
Thermal imaging there's no radiation, so it's non-invasive. You're going to reap so many rewards. And one of the things, and I want to go back to production. They're saying, well, if I take away a dental hygienist cleaning for that hour, how am I going to produce money? I'm looking at it going, are you crazy? If you add the evaluations, then you've got more business than you know what to do with. You're going to have to add more providers to treat because you're going to be busier than you'll know what to do with.
And hygienists will be lining up at your door because they're going to want to work at your dental practice where they don't have to only scrape teeth all day.
Well, in the amount of treatment you'll have off of that, especially if you're working with a team, not to mention you're going to get referrals from the other doctors for these evaluations. How many medical doctors are going to refer to your practice for these evaluations that they're not taking? They're not taking the dental x-rays. They're not set up for that. You know, and I know these dentists are trying to get into dental sleep medicine, but they're missing the boat on it, and they're using these cone beam technology, which they're totally missing the boat on that. You can slice a jaw on the 129 slices, but where's the soft tissue evaluation in it? It's not there. And where's the condyle evaluate? Where's the bite? Where's the swallowing? Where's the tongue positioning? Where are the cranial nerves? They're not showing any of that. I have it built in to put those evaluations of the CBTs into the software, but you still need the extra information in for going in there to evaluate. I don't see this going away. I see the smart people, the upstream intelligent, smart dental practitioners, the
Yeah.
young saying, you know what, dental medicine is the future. I want to be a dental physician and I want to be part of a team. And I'm going to take these evaluations and I'm going to make time in my dental hygiene department because that's where it should be in the dental hygiene department. You said, well, I think the dental assistant should take. Let me tell you something. Dental assistants are dental assisting. They're not educating the patient. They don't get the education on the cranial nerves. You've got a college degreed practitioner provider in an environment that's not using her brain, and you want to use it. You want to educate because therein lies your compliance for each case. And that trust is built on education and knowledge. A dental assistant is not going to, they don't have they don't have the foundation. Bless their hearts, we need them. But they made a choice to go into assisting, not educating. And that's where I will draw the line. And I even heard a dental assistant tell me, she's like, I don't want to talk about what the problems are. I just want to take the images. Well, that's great, but then you got to talk about the problems if you're going to take the images in an hour. That if we can put aside that hour and charge with cross-code billing, which it is now, medical billing inside dental, now you've got a dental hygienist utilizing education and creating treatments for a team of doctors that's going to increase the quality of life. And if the person is in their early 20s, how blessed is that? Because by the time they're in their 60s, like you said, they're going to have a higher quality of life. And the thing is here, Shirley, all these people with their walkers and their canes and their little clunks with their walkers,
Yeah.
all coming from the occlusion that didn't get addressed in their early 20s. So that strain on the neck is shutting down their clavicles, is shutting down the ribs, is shutting down the pelvis, and shutting down the knees and the joints and the ankles, and they've got pain. And then they're told to replace it with surgery when it's the dental issue. I'm just,
They need a new hip, they need a new this. Yep. So yeah, the dental component is very much missing in almost all of medicine. And dentists are not good at promoting themselves as physicians, dental physicians or oral physicians. We're specialists in a part of the body that connects to all of the rest of the parts of the body.
I wish the dentist would understand their identity because
Yeah.
identity is so critical.
But it's not about just the enamel towers. It's not about crown and bridge. It's not about replacing teeth. It's the teeth and the neurology that goes with the teeth and how that interacts with the soft tissue.
And the brain.
It's just so remarkable, even today. So I started being a dental hygiene speaker in 2003, and I did talk about oral cancer. And at the time, oral cancer was taking 50% of the lives of the people that were diagnosed. Where is oral cancer diagnosed most often? In the physician's office. Why are patients going to a physician when they have a sore in their mouth? Because the dentist is skipping over it. They're like, any sores in your mouth, any lumps or bumps? Nope. Next, how about these teeth? You need a crown. You need a replacement. You need this. And they're just not doing any real soft tissue stuff. I was representing a company that did brush biopsies, which is super easy. And when you do a brush biopsy of an oral lesion, most times it's going to come back negative, which then they're like, oh, well, then why did I bother? But you're also eliminating all of the cells that may be aberrant, and you are then reducing the chances in that spot of another oral cancer growing.
Once again, we're talking about what's the identity of the dental profession.
Yeah, they're not there. They're enamel carpenters.
Yeah, we're changing that, and we're bringing on our conversation. We're going to have Dr. Smith hopefully next week and talking about this very subject. He's so busy, he stopped taking patients. That's how busy he became because he started his dental physician work in this area. And I'm hoping that his courses that we'll talk about and everything will get more, we'll be able to, expose more dentists to these courses and help increase the awareness of the need of this dental physician movement. And
Yeah.
it's not going away.
So my name is Shirley Gutkowski. I'm the owner of Primal Air, where we work with the muscles in the snoring complex to kind of harmonize them and stumble across all of the things that we were talking about today. And and Victoria is the developer of the ThermaLinxs or ThermaLinxs software. And you can find me at primalair.com or on Facebook. I spend most of my social media time on Facebook. And how do people find you, Victoria?
You'll find me on drlinxs.com, DRLINXS.com.
Sweet. And we'd be happy to speak with you and help you out getting all of these processes lined up in your practice.
Right. We're opening up a new line of communication and consulting because I think there's going to be a great need for how do we start? This is great, Victoria and Shirley, you're talking about this, but where do we start? And that's
What do we
what
do first? Yeah.
we'll come in and help.
Thank you.